gamers, this is Tim, Samurai7, and I want to review BRP, which is Basic Roleplaying's Classic Fantasy. And this was basically introduced to me on the BRP Central, which is the forum for BRP. And I really liked the sound of it. I really liked what he was trying to do. The author's name is Rodney V. Leary Jr. And Classic Fantasy is a throwback to the older RPG games. Your basically younger generation games. I don't know how you want to classify them. The old school games. He has in the game, it's called the Realm, which is like the default setting, and it's more like your traditional RPG setting. He's done some other things with the BRP engine. He's changed appearance to charisma to kind of reflect, because a lot of the old school games used charisma. Instead of alignment, he uses the BRP allegiance system, which is nice. Instead of batting you over the head for doing things you're not supposed to do, it rewards you for role playing your correct belief system, either good, neutral, or evil. And I think that's a very nice way of doing it. I'm kind of impressed by that. So the allegiance system is really cool. The allegiance system is in the Big Gold book, the BRP book, but it's also he talks about it more in this as well. He has the classes that he has instead of professions. They're still flexible, but they add additional benefits like you would be familiar with for other fantasy RPGs. And they all have specialties. Classic Fantasy is levelless, as is BRP. And what I think I really like about Classic Fantasy is it gives that old school kind of like retro clone feel, and it's still flexible. It's its own creature, sort of. Like, I never played any of the BRP original games, like Elric or anything like that, or Stormbringer, but I know a lot of people have, or like RuneQuest. I never got a chance to play those games, so I'm really excited to try to play this, try to run these games, and see what it turns out to be like. So things aren't, there's no levels in this game, so to improve your skills, you have to use them. And those rules are in the BRP book as well. The races are human, dwarf, elf, gnome, half-elf, half-orc, and halfling. So again, we're not trying to remake the wheel, we're just trying to use the wheel in a different engine. And you roll dice for the stats, depending on what the race is. The races have that, basically, we're very familiar with them, and I like some of the ways that he's tweaked them to fit into the BRP engine. Classes are Barbarian, Bard, Cleric, Druid, Fighter, Illusionist, Magic User, Monk, Paladin, Ranger, and Thief. These are very similar to the BRP professions, but they're a little bit different. There's option rules for encumbrance, multi-classing. Let's see what else we got here. Classic Fantasy uses the gods from more historical mythologies, and instead of going down the fantasy god realm, different. So you would be very familiar with these gods, from Egyptian mythology, Greek mythology, Norse mythology, and I think it'd be a lot of fun to play in a game that has those deities. Because if you want more fleshed out descriptions, you can just go do research, or if you don't already know what they are. He's changed some skills. He added some new ones to the generic BRP skill titles, and he goes through and details how he's changed all the different skills. Languages are Common, Sylvan, Dark, Draconic, Underdeep, Aquatic, Elemental, Infernal, Celestial, and Divine. And there's also the racial languages for their ancestors. There's a nice section on potions, and he's done an interesting thing with magic. He's taken the magic power system from BRP, and he's kind of broken it down into 4 sections. The magic users, illusionists, clerics, and druids, and some of the other classes can use some of those spells as well. He calls power points magic points. What else does he do here? There's different options, and there's a ton of new spells, which is very nice. Everybody likes new spells, and they seem very well balanced with each other. And they're very flexible. So for those that are used to level-based RPGs, you can take one spell and just sink more magic points into it and have it do different things. So like a heal spell would be the equivalent of like Cure Light, Cure Moderate, all the way up. So you don't really need to have a bunch of different spells on your sheet. For equipment, it uses gold, silver, and copper, pretty much the same, way any other old school game does. It has added rules for using shields, and it uses hit points by body location, which I've never done in an RPG, and I'm kind of curious to see how that would work out. If it doesn't work out, whenever I run it, I'm sure I can just go back to the standard sort of hit point way the BRP does it. Big list of armors, weapons, and general equipment. There's different spot rules for different things, and spot rules is a way of saying just general rules to kind of make BRP fit into a fantasy game. There's armor damage because of critical hits, leaders, digging and tunneling, a thing called immediate skill improvement. Normally you have to wait a little bit till the end of the session, but if you get a critical success, your skill automatically goes up 1%. And it basically tells you that you're more of a heroic character in this kind of games. Things like locked doors, marching order, ammunition, repairing weapons and armor, rest and recovery, scouting ahead, secret doors, securing a door, sinking in like the mud and mire of different dungeon areas. I really like something that goes into here called Standard Operating Procedure, or SOP. And these kind of remind me of the Burning Wheel instincts. Like, these are, depending on what ones you have set up, like the standing operating procedure for coming to a door. If you figure this out at the beginning of a campaign, you don't have to waste as much time while you're playing. The GM knows what you're going to do, which characters are going to do what, and it seems like it speeds gameplay up. It just automatically happens. It's kind of like you wrote some code for your character, and like every door he goes to, he's gonna listen first. He's gonna check to see if it's locked. He's gonna do these sorts of things. So I really like that idea, and I think that's one you can take to other RPGs as well. There's other roles for like training type places, 2 weapons, fighting, and encounter distance. There's a big section on combat with miniatures rules, and I don't know. I like to bring miniatures into games, but I don't always like to have crunchy rules for them. But I know a lot of other people that like that tactical advantages and disadvantages for different things. So I think this is a section that you can really like or dislike, or maybe find some middle ground in between where you're like, you know what, I like some of these rules but not other ones. For instance, the one that I really didn't like, but I think the more tactical people would like, is called, let's see here. It's the zone of control, and free attacks if someone comes through that. So it's kind of similar to the way Dungeons and Dragons has done it in later editions. Attack of opportunities, those sorts of things. So those are there if you like them. I personally don't like that. I like to use miniatures, but I don't like all the crunchy rules. So take this section, and maybe you really like this section. Maybe you don't. There's lots of examples for how to do movements, how to do everything else. The one thing I really like in this section, though, is actions. Depending on what your dex is, you can have multiple actions in a round, and they go through with different options. Like, okay, this would cost 2 actions to do. This costs 1. This is a free action. This is that, and it lets you do interesting things. And I just really like that action idea. That the quicker you are, the more you can do, and I think that really kind of rewards dexterity. So if you want to play that quick character, you can probably do things faster and quicker than other ones. Then, this is a way to actually represent it in the system. So that was a very interesting idea. There's a big old long list of combat modifiers, and I really like the character sheet. I think it's just, I don't know, it's just gorgeous. In the book itself, there's not a lot of great art or anything. It's not like Pathfinder that's beautiful, but it definitely, I don't know, it just has a nice old school flavor, and using the BRP engine, I think it's nice and flexible. So BRP Classic Fantasy it's a nice old school feeling that you can bring to BRP, and I heartily recommend it. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.